The following episode may contain discussions surrounding suicide, mental health disorders, self-harm, and other very real, very triggering topics. If, at any point during the episode, you or someone you know is in need of support, please don't wait. Call 988 or visit iasp.info to easily access resources or have a one-on-one conversation with a certified mental health expert. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Make Mental podcast. My name is Caleb Munsky, and today we have on Olivia Bray. Thank you for joining us today, Olivia.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, super excited. I think you are our first swimmer on the podcast, so that's really exciting. And we did not settle for just any swimmer. We have a ton of statistics that we found and accomplishments that you did. So we will start with that if it's okay with you. We will pump your tires a little bit, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into the more difficult conversations that we're thankful you're willing to have with us.
Yeah, of course. Sounds great.
All right. So Olivia is a swimmer currently at the University of Texas. And this is a long list. I think I have like a page and a half here. So we'll try and shorten it. We'll try and go as quick as possible. I already took some stuff out. So Olivia is a 2-time NCAA runner-up at Texas, a 17-time All-American across 4 different events. And I might say these wrong, but the 500 freestyle, the 100 back, the 200 back, the 100 fly, the 200 fly, the 400 free relay, the 800 free relay, the 200 medley, and the 400 medley relay. She is a University of Texas record holder in the 200 medley with a medley relay with a time of 1:33:22, and in the 400 medley relay with a time of 3:25:18. She is also a 3-time Big 12 team champion in 2021, 22, and 23, an 18-time Big 12 champion, 6 of those being individual championships across various events, a 2-time All Big 12 academic team member, and a 4-time All Big 12 Commissioners Honor Roll member. And previous to college, in case you thought that wasn't enough, for the 17-18, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, is it SCY Butterfly NAG? Is that the organization?
So it's like short course yards, 100 butterfly national age group record. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. So that's in the 100 fly, and then she's third ranked for the same age group in the 200 fly. She also attended Olympic trials at one point in her career, which that in itself is impressive. But the rest of those statistics, and again, I shortened them because we didn't want to spend the first 12 minutes talking about all you've accomplished. We really want to get into your mental health. But is there anything notable that I left out that you're super proud of in terms of your athletic accomplishments?
You covered a lot. That was pretty impressive. I definitely would have forgotten a few of those. I guess one thing is I qualified for my first Olympic trials when I was 14 and competed in the 2016 Olympic trials. I went from 108th in prelims. I was one of very few people to actually drop time at the meet and finish 33rd at that meet. And I swam 3 events there, and then I also swam at the 2021 Olympic trials. I think I swam 3 events there again. But I finaled in the 100 fly long course and then semi-finaled in the 200 fly long course there.
What does that process look like? Is it you have to win to be selected, or are you put in a pool of reserves? How does that work?
So you have to go the qualifying time to make Olympic trials. And then in prelims, you have to do top 16 to make semis that compete that night. And then of those semis, top 8 compete in the finals the following night. And then out of the finals, top 2 make the Olympic team, and then top 6 make the Olympic team in the 100 and 200 freestyle.
Okay,
It's a lot.
so a lot of racing back to
Yes.
back, and I'd assume the times still get progressively faster round to round, which is honestly insane because I mean, measly little Division 3 soccer over here, we played back to back days at some points, and I was more tired the second day. So the fact that your times get faster on the second and third and maybe fourth day is insane to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of racing, but you get used to it.
Well, especially when you do what 8, 9 different events across your career, and the team events, the qualification is the same process.
So for the Olympic like relays, they'll do that's why top six make it in the 100 and 200 freestyle
Oh,
because
okay, okay,
you swim like at the Olympic level, you swim relays and prelims and then relays at finals. So you need more than four people if you don't want them to be tired.
that makes sense. So it's kind of like based off of how you qualify in the individual races, they kind of stick you on a team for the
Yeah,
relays.
basically.
Okay, interesting. I'm just always fascinated by how that works because it's totally different in the world of soccer. You kind of just go to a bunch of camps and trials, and if you're good enough, they stick you on the team. It has nothing to do with times and whatnot. Obviously, I'm dumbing it down a lot there, but it just fascinates me across sports of at the highest level possible for your country what that process looks like and the amount of time and effort and physical and mental stress that goes into it. Um, so, with all of that behind us and all your accomplishments, again, we like to focus on that at the beginning because it is a big part of who you are and your identity. But we also then like to switch gears to who you are as a person. So, can you tell us a little bit about Olivia growing up? What were you, was swimming always part of your life?
I started swimming when I was around 6 or 7, which honestly is a little late for most swimmers. They usually start when they were like 2 or something, but I grew up doing every single sport known to man. I mean, I was in dance classes, I was in gymnastics, soccer, running, basketball, like you name it, I did it. Um,
Huh.
and I just was thrown into the pool one summer and I was like really good at it for some reason. And I was like, I think I'm gonna stick with this.
Huh.
And I did a bunch of the sports until probably like middle school. And then I started doing doubles. And I was like, I can't go to 4 a.m. practice and then school and then another swim practice and then like a different sport after. Hold on. The dogs are playing. I'm gonna kick them out.
You're all right. Let them have some fun. It's all right.
Okay. Um, but yeah, I was definitely a weird kid growing up. Like my mom always called me very animated, very like outgoing, very different than what I am now. I think I'm a little bit like more
Huh.
reserved and introverted, but I do talk about mental health and like my stories with that a lot. But um, yeah, I was very curious as a kid, and I just like to try a bunch of things out. And are you sure they're okay?
Do you want to have them have a little appearance here? We can have them say hello quickly. Maybe they just want to get on camera. There they are.
So
Hello.
this is Jackson Max. They're besties.
They're having a lot of fun back there.
Yeah. Um, just threw my husband's socks at them.
Oh no, that's awesome. Um, yeah. So, do you think there was a specific event in your life that kind of flipped the switch from maybe being an extrovert to an introvert? Because I know that happens to a lot of people. Some people call it maturity, if you will. I don't like to choose that word because I don't know. I don't like to associate maturity with extroversion and introversion. But was there something in your life that you can recall, maybe an event or just a coming of age moment where you're like, man, maybe I don't need to be the center of attention all the time?
Um, I don't know if there was like a certain event, but I was like a little chubby kid growing up, and I think dealt with some like bullying things, and I think that like third to sixth grade just kind of pushed me to be a little bit more introverted, not reach out as much, or
Huh.
not like be as loud, I guess, and kind of like be a shadow in the room a little bit. It's kind of a sad, but yeah, I think just like dealing with like kids and like elementary school, middle school, just kind of um, switched that a little bit for me.
Go Global is a free flowing technology company that handcrafts, embellishes, and manufactures garments and accessories. Designed on the principles of people, places, and possibilities, Go Global reimagines fashion and is inspired by you, the people of the world. Yeah, third to sixth grade is really early to kind of, I mean, you'd think is really early to kind of bring mental health into the picture, but I appreciate the point because it's not something we often think about, right? A lot of times, I mean, myself included, we kind of push our childhood to the side when we get into college. We're like, okay, I can finally become who I want to be, whether it's athletically, academically, individually. But the first thing that at least my therapist did, and I think most therapists or counselors or mental health professionals will do, is kind of make you relive your childhood. And I think that's interesting because you mentioned third to sixth grade in terms of bullying and the conversation around weight. Was there, and again, forgive me if this is an intrusive question, you can always say no. This is always an option to say no. We never like to pressure, I guess, into answering. But was there a conversation that you had with yourself or with someone who you looked up to in terms of weight that, like you said, kind of pushed you towards swimming? I don't know. I don't know if this is a stretch, but a lot of times that a lot of my friends anyway, who are a little bit more overweight in sports, seem to wean away from sports. And they were like, oh, they couldn't keep up, or they told themselves they weren't good enough. They could never get back into shape. Did you have the opposite effect? Was it like, oh, I have to throw myself further into sports?
I don't think so. Thankfully, I don't think I
Okay.
had that thought. I always I would like I have an older sister who was also like put into sports, but she like absolutely hated it. So I think I got like the competitive sports gene in my family, and that kind of pushed me to
Hmm.
like into swimming and stuff. And when I hit puberty in like sixth or seventh grade, like I grew like 2 feet tall and like slimmed out a little
Okay.
bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't think anything happened with like weight and swimming, thankfully. I haven't
Okay.
really thought of that actually. That's a good point. Maybe I'll bring that up in therapy.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't saying it for that. I just know that I've had some, again, like I said, I've had some friends. I mean, I was a chubby baby. I was 10'4". So my poor mom, I joke. I'm the youngest of I have three brothers. If I was first, I'd be an only child. You can't, like, 10'4" is crazy. But uh, that was baby fat for me. Like, I eventually grew out of it probably by the time I was in like second, third grade, which is why it was interesting to me. That's the time that you've recalled where that was on the forefront of your mind. And again, it's not something a child should have to think about. Like, they should just be able to go to school, not be peer pressured about their weight or whatever. Like, there's so many developmental things that happen that the last thing they need is to worry about their weight. So my question was more of like it's just something to think about because a lot of my friends had an instance like that where their parents made them join sports so they could lose the weight rather than maybe sit down with your kid and figure out why they might be a little overweight or if that's natural for them. So I guess that was more to point out to any parents that might be listening. Like, if your kid doesn't want to do a sport, don't force them to do a sport just because they might be a little bit overweight. And again, I lost all my baby fat by probably second or third grade. It takes some people, like you mentioned, all the way up until six. So again, if you're a parent listening, I would really encourage you to just relax a little bit, let your kid experience being a little bit overweight. Obviously, if it gets out of hand, then take some action. But I wouldn't force them into sports because that does definitely have sometimes a reverse effect and could even make your child resent you. But excuse me, I'm very glad to hear though that you don't think that you had any of those experiences. That makes me really happy. And I think we can move on to the next section here, which has to do with more of your story now as a person and as an athlete. Obviously, a lot happens between sixth grade in college, all those equally as awkward middle school and high school years. Um, but what really encouraged you to speak out on your own well-being?
Um, so a little backstory. I've dealt with an eating disorder called ARFID since I was probably 8 or so. ARFID stands for like avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. I grew up eating about 5 foods, and um, in high school ish, I started to restrict whenever I was upset or I gained weight or stuff like that. And I tried so many different. I went to hypnotherapy. I went to regular counseling. I worked with multiple nutritionists and never made any progress for a couple years. And then COVID hit, and I was with my mentor in Arizona training, and we found out like everything's getting shut down, like they're going to postpone Olympic trials. Um, I had already graduated high school a semester early, so I was just swimming, and we just kind of talked about everything, and then talked googled my symptoms and found out I probably have like an eating disorder. Reached out to a treatment center or a few different treatment centers, and finally went to ED recovery center in May of 2020. Had some issues there. I was there for about 3 weeks, and just like learning and hearing a lot of other people talk about their ED and about their mental health in the treatment center and what they were going through that was similar, but also generally very the same as very similar to mine. That kind of pushed me into like, oh my God, I'm not alone in this. Like, I thought I had been alone for 18 years of my life and the only one dealing with this type of thing, and nobody would understand. But having that experience with them and like bonding with them really opened my eyes. And I left 3 weeks later. I posted about my time on Instagram and had so many people like reach out to me and just be like, thank you for sharing this. Like, I've dealt with something similar, or I've been to an ED treatment center and this, like, or I'm in one right now, and this, like, helped me find the, like, courage and strength to, like, keep going. And that kind of, like, it helped spark my interest to, like, keep talking about this. Like, I always thought I was alone, and I think most people do when they are struggling and, like, nobody's going to understand, but so many people are struggling and it's just not talked about enough. Like, there's so much stigma around mental health and eating disorders that it's just hard to hear about it. And I want to help break that stigma. I want to help normalize this conversation and make people feel less alone in their struggles. And I think asking for help was one of the scariest things I did, but like something I add in all of my messages on like Instagram is like, it's brave to ask for help. Like, I think that's one of the strongest things you can do is be vulnerable with yourself, be vulnerable with whoever you trust, and just admit that you can use some extra help right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that message too. It's brave to ask for help, especially for athletes. We're used to, and I say it in probably 90% of our episodes, we're used to instantaneous results. And in terms of the game's over or the race is done and you know exactly where you finished, if you've won or lost, or in the off season, your goal is to put on or lose X amount of pounds. Okay, well, I have to spend this much time running. I have to eat this much. Like, it's all mapped out for us. That when the mental health part of our life is not, we often don't know how to react. And again, it's no one's fault. It's just we're used to knowing what we want and then either achieving it or not achieving it and then adjusting that way. When in your mental health, like you said, with the eating disorder, you're like, I'm alone, what is wrong with me? It was all these negative feelings when in reality it wasn't you. And I appreciate you're our second guest that has openly said they went to some sort of facility, and that in itself comes with some dark, scary connotation for some reason. Because when I think of facility, or when I think of mental health facility, and this is not a shot at anyone, I think of like some psychiatric ward where people are painting hieroglyphics on the walls, and like you pick a scary movie in a psychiatric ward, that's immediately where my mind goes, even as someone who's emerged in mental health. Or as we've heard from one of our guests, Wes Woodson, he called it an outpatient clinic or an outpatient facility. He had a different story in terms of how he ended up there or why he chose to go there, but he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him as well. And I'm kind of curious, what was your, I guess, outpatient facility is the appropriate word for it? What was that like for you, that whole experience?
So mine was an inpatient facility because
Inpatient,
I
okay.
lived there for 3 weeks. Uh,
So maybe that's what his was called too.
well,
So
so you usually go from like inpatient where you're there 24/7 to outpatient, which you're there during the day. It's kind of like school.
okay, yeah, no, that's yeah. He called it anxiety school. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming he went back home at night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you ask what my experience was like? Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, well, I said it comes with some
Yeah.
big, scary, dark understanding, and clearly you've gone through it and you've come out. I'm assuming more secure with who you are. How was that for you? Were you scared at first, and then what happened?
Definitely terrified. So I'm from the East Coast, and I went to a place in Missouri. Yeah, so I went halfway across the country all by myself in the middle of COVID, um, and it was it's definitely an interesting experience. Thankfully, with COVID, we were allowed to like have our phones 24/7, so I was able to stay connected to my family and friends back home. But it like you said, it was scary. Like there's always bad like connotations about it. I thought I was gonna go to like an asylum, but we were also like in a basement somewhere. There were like no windows. Um,
What?
it was crazy, but um, yeah, I had a lot of issues there. I was hospitalized for the first time in my life, 4 days in. Um, Fun fact, you can overdose on calcium. So,
What?
yeah, I don't know. Um,
How does that happen?
I so you pick like your diet basically, breakfast, lunch, dinner, what you want to eat. So I picked food that I've never seen before. Like, I mean, I ate 5 foods going in. I loved white rice, cheese pizza, bland crackers, bananas, and cookies.
Th- that sounds like my diet. All of my housemates that are listening are gonna laugh because that is my diet. And you add soda and coffee, and there's what I eat.
Yeah, I only drink water. Water and white milk. Superior.
Okay, well, I'm struggling in the water department, but that's a story for another day. But continue, please.
And so basically, like, if you can't eat the food on your plate, you have to like supplement it. Which at the beginning, it's like you drink Boost, like the like. Do you know what Booster and Sure is?
Yep, boost.
Yeah, and so basically, I would be having a couple of those a day, and I was also dehydrated because I was scared and was in a new place. And so they have a lot of calcium in those shakes. So I my calcium just shot up, vitamin D shot up, and I was 4 days later, or actually 2 days later, I was like in the fetal position 24/7. Like my stomach hurt so bad, I couldn't get up, couldn't eat, and they drew my blood 2 days later. Noticed the lab results, and next thing I know, I was in an ambulance going to the hospital, and I was in there for 24ish hours on an IV, getting my blood drawn every 4 hours.
Empire Specialty Printing is a family owned and operated screen printing and promotional products company. ESP has been in business for over a decade by providing consistent and high quality service. Products include custom hoodies, shirts, hats, business supplies, and much, much more. Whether it's for a family party, school team, group, or corporate apparel, Empire Specialty Printing has what you need to get the ball rolling.
I mean that, not to kind of overplay it here, but that makes the whole experience that much more scary.
Yeah,
I mean, no one likes the hospital to begin with. I mean, unless you're a doctor, but uh, that, holy crap. I'm sorry that happened.
yeah, it was okay. I actually got to eat rice there, so my stomach was happy. I was
Okay.
like, yes, a safe
Sucked some
food.
of the calcium out.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I met a lot of good people there. I still connect
Mm.
with a few of them now, but I also I just personally had a bad experience. Like RFID is not very well known or like researched, and treatment programs are not the best, or they weren't in 2020. So I was being treated for something else and not really being listened to. Um, but I do, I am very grateful that I went and experienced all the things I experienced there. Thankfully, a light switched in my head, and that helped me um, have the confidence and courage to try a bunch of new foods. As soon as I got out, I was trying at least 3 new foods a week and just like adding to my diet every day, which has helped me so much. When I got to college in August, I went from like 5 foods to like probably 30 to 40 foods that I would be comfortable eating. And now I can go to most any restaurant and find something on the menu that I like
Hey.
that um, is nutritious and balanced, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, well, kudos to you. That's not an easy task. I mean, some people could be listening to this being like, "What is she, 6 years old? Like, can only eat 5 foods?" And I say that in the nicest way possible because, again, it's not a really well known eating disorder. But I just really want people to understand that that takes a lot of courage. Number one, to try a food knowing that you very well may just throw it back up because your body won't take it. Number two, to consciously make the effort to better yourself and veer away from bananas and rice. Like, while those are healthy, if that's all you're eating, like there's not a lot of protein, like things necessary for athletes, number one, but let alone your brain, right? Like thought processes, sleeping, all that can be affected by what you put into your body. So again, I just want to highlight and commend you for expanding your palate a little bit. Well, a lot of it, because that that is tremendously difficult to do. So kudos to you for that. Um, but I find it interesting too that even though it was scary for you, even though you were hospitalized, even though you expanded your food selection, um, you still chose to go public with your struggles with depression and with eating disorder. I can't help but think the fact that you found some sense of community in in this whole experience, that you didn't want to keep it to yourself, that you might have gotten so much out of knowing that you weren't alone, that you felt like other people should know they're not alone as well. I mean, you are fairly well known in the swimming community and in terms of especially female swimmers. Was there some sense of responsibility there for you, or was it just something that you wanted to do and help other people by putting it on Instagram?
I think at first it was something that I wanted to do. Like I just I just felt so alone, and when I learned that I wasn't, I wanted to help as many people as I could feel supported and like they can get better and like live a happy life. And I think as time has went on and as I've posted more, I kind of feel a little bit of a responsibility. Like everything I post, I do want to post. Like, but I recently have been like struggling with like depression and like suicidal thoughts, mainly this past summer and last year. And I it was hard for me to post that just because I don't think I've ever been in such a dark place before, but I felt a responsibility to be vulnerable and share a little bit more cuz I mean, not a lot of athletes talk about that. Like eating disorder is one thing, like anxiety is one thing, and I just never dealt with like suicidal thoughts before that have been that intense, like um and just I just felt like a little sense of responsibility, like, oh, you've like shared like these parts of your life, like why can't you share this? And I think that kind of pushed me into that pushes me to like share a little bit more about my life and continue to share. But the main reason I share is definitely because I want to, like, I want to help as many people as I can not feel alone. And like I I never want anyone to feel the way I did. And if I like post something and if I help like one person, that's great. Like, I would love that. If I can help multiple people, even better. But as time has gone on, I do feel a little bit more like a responsibility to do it. I also, like, I'm going to be done with college swimming soon. And I think a part of me wants to continue pursuing that, like sharing the real aspects of like a Division 1 swimmer or like athletics. And like I know some people do that like as a career, and that would be like, I want to like set myself up in case I can do that. And that, I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of went off on a few different things, but yeah, definitely as time has gone on, a little bit more responsibility inside of me to keep posting.
Definitely answer the question. I think you hit the nail on the head in a few places. In my opinion, one, that's kind of our motto. I know my co-host and myself were like, selfishly, if that one person it helps is ourself, then that's enough to keep us hosting this podcast. But on the flip side, we're in spots in our lives now where we've taken care of a lot of our mental health struggles. Well, I should speak for me. I shouldn't speak for my co-host. I'm in a spot where I've taken care of a lot of my mental health struggles. So thankful for it, because it was not an easy time to go through anxiety and OCD. It's a weird combination because you have OCD and then your anxiety starts about having OCD. But then when you're anxious, all your OCD habits come out. And I just find myself standing underneath the doorway, tapping the ceiling. Like, as stupid as that sounds, it's real. And it's been prevalent my whole life. And it wasn't until recently that I realized it. But totally off topic. The motto to help one person, yourself and one other person, I'll say, because obviously yourself should come first. If we all did that, my goodness, like, as cliche as it sounds, the world would quite literally be a better, more accepting, more understanding place. And I say understanding and accepting, excuse me, not to the fact that you have to agree with everything that everyone says or does, but as long as you can try and see it through their lens, or understand that there are multiple people that see the world through that lens and they aren't alone. That to me is powerful. And the second point that you brought up that I wanted to talk about is the pressures and in the responsibility of being an athlete. Again, I'm Division 3, probably really only known in my conference that I played in, maybe my hometown. But again, there's a lot of kids from my high school that went on to play Division 1, Division 2, and even professional. They have such a spotlight around them that I'm not even envious of anymore. Like, I used to want that. I used to want to be the person in front of the camera, the person scoring the winning goal for soccer. I mean, I was a defender, so I'll take any goal I can get. But I wanted to be the hero, basically. But that also comes with potentially being the zero. So I'm not envious of any of those spotlights. But what I wanted to point out was the responsibility that you felt to continue to help others. I think that a lot of people have a sense of wanting to do that, but not many people have that personality trait or that characteristic to be able to do it, right? You obviously are extremely successful in the pool. And the fact that that's coming to a close, this is similar to my experience. The fact that I'm done with college soccer, I'm in a washed up co-ed league now, but this gives me a new purpose. My purpose for 20 years, 22 years has been sports. It's been, I struggle with athletic identity for a while. The fact that you are realizing it while you're still in your sport understanding like, okay, even though I'm Olympic trialist, one day I'm not going to be able to jump in the pool and do record times anymore. That's not an easy concept to grasp.
Need a tow? Top Shot Transport is the place to go. From cars to machinery, heavy equipment to general freight, Top Shot Transport will give you the best rate. Top Shot Transport is fully licensed and ready to tow your stuff anywhere. Email topshottransport1@gmail.com for more information.
So I guess it leads me to my next question about the pressures of being an athlete. The pressure of, I think you wrote in the Daily Texans at one point, or you spoke with them, and one of your quotes I pulled that I really wanted to get into was, you talk about the pressures of being an athlete, and that unless someone was one, they wouldn't necessarily understand the unique pressures that go with it. Can you explain that thought process a little bit? Why was that something that was a highlighted quote in that conversation with the Daily Texan for you?
I think it's like, you're not going to know what someone else is going through until you like live their life, you're in their shoes. And I think like every single sport, every division, every school, every team is unique in itself and unique to their struggles. And I think that interview came after Simone Biles like pulling out of the Olympics, something like that. And
Yeah, I think she had vertigo.
yeah, and I remember like um reading the media, and just they were just like bashing her and just like, what are you doing? Like, you need to be a team player. Like, this is so unprofessional. And these are all like non-athletic people who probably haven't played sports in a while or didn't in college, and they're just like, they have no idea what she was going through at that point. Like, and I think it's hard to like compare yourself to something you've never done, and you can't really like speak on that until you've actually done it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think I was guilty of the first group of people you listed there for a little while. I thought, my God, what a selfish move when someone else who worked their ass off just like you could have performed and I mean performed in gymnastics, but competed for their country. Like I was confused. I was like, that's such a selfish move. But again, the more I've experienced my own mental health journey, I'm so lucky I didn't put it out anywhere on social media because I would have had to eat my words publicly. But I think personally, in my own growth as an individual, I was like, wait a minute, she worked her ass off equally as hard as as everyone else there. And it's a condition called the twisties, actually, now that I think about it. And it's vertigo like symptoms, which makes you dizzy. And that's dangerous no matter what. But that's extremely dangerous when you're flipping on balance beams and bars. So it's not like she said, oh, I'm going to sit out because I don't want to. She couldn't. Like, you could, I mean, as dramatic as it sounds, you could die if you fall off one of those bars wrong. So again, I was guilty, part of the first party. But again, and that goes to show you how difficult of a concept something like this is. Because I'm an athlete and I still couldn't understand why she'd sit out. I mean, I do now. Again, having a on-field anxiety attack was not fun, and I'm sure some of my teammates might have thought, like, "What the hell? What is he doing? Just get over it." But again, that goes to show you how important the conversation we're having right now, and the fact that you're willing to speak up on it is. If athletes can't understand each other, how can we present this to non-athletes moving forward? And I think that's where a lot, again, of my self-growth came. But to go off that, you and kind of circle back to the beginning here, you said it's brave to ask for help. Another quote from the Daily Texan was, asking for help is the first step to accepting mental health, and then moving through it, and then trying to get better. I kind of want to maybe rewind a little bit to even before your depression that you've openly shared with us that you've dealt with these past couple of years. What was that moment like for you when you said, I think you said it was to your mentor in Arizona, I need help? Like, what was that moment like?
Um, I think I don't think I was like, I need help. I think she
Okay.
was like, she did some research for me because since I was living with her, like, she got to see firsthand just how bad and destructive my eating disorder was. Like, her family were eating like one meal, and then I had like a cheese pizza by myself, and that's what I had: breakfast, lunch, dinner. And so she did some research for me and presented me with some options. And I mean, I would follow her to the moon and back. I would go anywhere for her. And she mentioned like, oh, like what about this like ED inpatient treatment center? And I was like, are you sure? Like, I don't know. And I like talked to one of the um I don't know their job role, but someone there that like takes in your information, does like a quiz questionnaire, like to see your symptoms and see if you would match. And
Like a triage nurse
yeah,
almost.
and doing that, I was like, wow, this isn't really normal. And um and just having like conversations with my mentor, like, do you want to be 30, like not able to eat out at restaurants, and if you have a bad day at work, like punish yourself by not having dinner or not eating the next day? And I was like, wow, like I don't want this to be the rest of my life. Like, I want to be able to enjoy going out and enjoy food and not be like scared and have to miss out on awesome opportunities when all of my friends are going out to dinner, or I have to order off the kids menu and like get made fun of. But I think just like having that conversation with her and like speaking to kind of like a professional about it, and just seeing like hearing those questions and like being able to answer like that, that kind of like flipped a switch. And I was like, okay, like maybe I do need help, and maybe this is the right time for me to get help. Because you could have put me in the same treatment facility, had the same experience like 6 months prior to that, I would not. I would have hated it. I would not have gotten better just because I didn't want to. And I yeah, but like nowadays, like when my depression was getting bad, um I've seen a therapist weekly and a nutritionist weekly ever since I first got to college. Um but whenever things just started getting bad again with my depression this time around, the last couple years, I would just kind of like internalize it, be like, okay, go through like the symptoms, like talk to myself about it, and then just be like, I think I need to see the therapist. Like, I think I need to talk to her about this, and then get a game plan for what can help me in the future. It's kind of like it's like muscle memory for me now. I feel like I've asked for help a lot of times. That thankfully I'm comfortable doing it, but at the beginning, like it was scary because I also had to tell my parents, and I was a very I kept to myself a lot as a kid, like, and having that phone call with my mom and dad and just being like, hey, like I think I have an eating disorder and I really want to go to this treatment center. How can we set this up? And I think I cried during that. And it was just like I had to be like completely vulnerable with like my family, which was really hard for me at the time, and really that was probably scarier than anything at the time.
Yeah.
But it's definitely being vulnerable, I think, is like a muscle, and you gotta continue using it to get better at it.
Yeah, I think there's mental health milestones, I guess I'll call them. And I think every single person and I speak lightly when I group every single person who struggles with mental health, but I think a majority of us remember the time we shared with the people we cared about most when we needed help. For some of us, that's our parents. For some of us, it's our siblings. Some of us, it's our caretakers, our grandparents, whoever that is for you. I'm just going to call them parents in this little segment here for our listeners. But that definitely is not something I'll ever forget, is when I told my parents, and I told my mom first because for some reason I just did. I mean, I've unpacked why. That's totally off topic in a different episode, but I find it interesting that I told her first, and we were standing in a subway about to go to a New England Patriots football game for my birthday, like the most random time. And I was just like, oh, hey, by the way, I've been seeing a therapist for the past 2 months. And she was like, oh, okay, are you okay? That was her first question. And that was the moment I kind of just took a deep breath. I was like, okay, she's not angry. She may be confused. She may be lost. She's not disappointed. She's not angry. And she gave me a hug in the middle of the subway, thanking me for telling her. My dad and my brother dropped me off, and they went to McDonald's. They're gluten free, so they can't eat a bunch of the Subway stuff. But I just told her, and we just stood there in an awkward 10 seconds of silence. And then I ordered my sub like nothing happened. We got back, and it was one of the coolest birthday presents ever. But definitely, I think anyone listening to this episode, if you go back and relive that memory of the moment you told your parents and it's positive, it definitely reinforces the decision to get help. Now, on the flip side, if it was a negative experience with the person you told, I'm not professionally inclined to speak on that, but I would suggest that's something you work through with your therapist, because the person you told might also be going through something. A lot of times that's what guests that I spoke to have found when they've had a negative experience. They told someone and that person was angry, like, how could you keep it from me for so long? Like, I'm your best friend, I'm your mom, like, you're your dad, you need to tell me these things. Okay, maybe they're not entirely wrong. Maybe you should have told them sooner, but again, it's not your fault that you didn't. Your timeline is your timeline. So if you have had those experiences, please, please, please try and work through those with your counselor, your therapist, and if it feels right, the person who you share those experiences with. Again, not a professional counselor here, just a student athlete trying to make a difference.
College can be a roller coaster, but Xant's got your back. First session, absolutely free. After that, just $25. Easy on the pocket, heavy on support. Stress, burnout, addiction, or trauma. Xant's expert coaches are here for you. Download the app, kick stress to the curb, and own your college journey. Your mental health, your way. Xant. Download and thrive today.
That will take us into our little final section here of the podcast. Actually, one little quick section before the final section. I do this every time. I get ahead of myself. Is there anything you want us to know about you and your mental health journey? Again, we appreciate you opening up, sharing quite a bit of your story. Obviously, there are bits and pieces that I encourage everyone keep to themselves. But is there anything else that you want us to know about you, about your eating disorder, your depression, your suicidal ideation, anything we need to know?
I guess just for everyone, like, recovery is not linear, and I thought it was at first. And when I had like my first dip down, December of my freshman year, I thought all of my progress had gone to waste. And I just want to like remind everyone that that's not true. Like, you go like this, but as long as I think as long as you continue to give yourself grace and continue to have and pursue those like healthy behaviors, like it's gonna be okay. And I just think like it's important. I think it's so important to give yourself grace. Like I grew up on a club team where that was you were never given grace, and that's something I've struggled with. And thankfully I have awesome college coaches and teammates and family that have given me grace with these types of things. And I think you got to give it to yourself first in order to like kind of continue on this path, and give yourself time, let yourself heal. But recovery and getting better is not linear, but progress is progress, and every day is a new day. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, just let that sit for a second, because it is such a fantastic point that progress is different for everyone, that just because you weren't given grace, or you haven't been giving grace to yourself or others, there's never a wrong time to start. And we appreciate that point. Now, to take us into the final section here of the Make Mental podcast with Olivia Bray, we like to end on a little bit of a more upbeat note, because we understand that this can be a heavy topic, that it can bring up a lot of potential triggers and just a bunch of old memories. So again, I'll quickly highlight, if you have had any unfortunate experiences while listening to this episode, please dial 988 if you need immediate attention, or go speak to someone really close to yourself who can help you get through this, because we are, myself and Olivia, both aware that this is not always easy to listen to. And again, thank you to Olivia for speaking on it, because it's not easy to speak on. This is number, I don't know where we are, 40 something in the podcast, and it doesn't get any easier to talk or listen to these stories, but we are very appreciative for Olivia sharing it. So to end out on a little bit more of an upbeat note, Olivia, in the last 2 weeks, we'll say 2 weeks. Well, we're not going to limit it to 2 weeks. We're going to let you decide. I always try to decide in the moment here. And sometimes I like 2 weeks, depending on how the conversation went. Sometimes I don't. This one, we're going to leave open. What are 3 things that make your heart smile that don't include swimming?
Oh, first one are the dogs. I mean, I come home here. I got one on my bed just.
Oh my, taking over.
Yeah, I mean, I got back from the meet session this morning, and they were both just on the couch. I opened the door, tails are wagging, going crazy. I mean, every time I see them when I get home, I just drop my stuff, run and give them a hug. And just, that is like, I could have had the worst day possible, like failed a test or something like that. And they just make my heart so happy. Like, I'm so grateful to have them. They're good dogs. So that's 1. 2, I've recently been into painting while watching a movie. As kind of like self-care-ish, but I've realized how much I just enjoy, like, put my phone on do not disturb, put it in my bathroom, shut the door. Like, I do put on a horror movie, so that I feel like that kind of like contradicts it. But
so we got a lot to dig through there. But
yeah, I love horror movies. They're so good.
Huh. What's the best one?
As Above, So Below is a solid movie.
Put that on my list here.
Yeah, definitely scary and
okay.
mental.
Now, do you paint happy things during this scary movie, or do you paint scary things during this scary movie?
I've been really into sunsets. So happy.
Okay.
Yeah, like,
that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not really into like the rom-coms or like the happy movies. I just really enjoy horror movies, or like,
you just want to be scared and thrilled while painting a sunset.
Yep. It's perfect with me.
Huh. All right, and then number 3, what is the last thing that makes your heart smile? We got dogs and horrifying sunsets.
Yeah. Also just like hanging out with my roommates. Like, we'll go to we've been exploring some like happy hour menus, and we found some really good Mexican places with like $5 quesadillas, and that's just like a fun evening, like little adventure to go on. And
the college student budget.
Yeah, and it's it's been fun to like explore different places. Like I never would have done that 4 years ago. And just like trying new things when we're there. And yeah, those Mexican food has my heart too. So anything Mexican,
It's your new favorite, would you say?
definitely top three,
Oh, okay.
maybe top two.
Okay. What's number one
I
now?
don't know.
If Mexican's not
I
one.
love Mexican and I love breakfast foods.
Like pancakes or eggs?
All of it.
Just give you breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I love this.
Favorite
This is
favorite meal of
I mean, I like food as well, but man, breakfast would not be number one. That's interesting. I mean, bacon. Bacon would be number one. But
yeah, that's good.
Well, again, I think the fact that we kind of walked through from very young, third grade, all the way up to current Olivia goes to show how much growth and self discovery and positivity you found within yourself, and then the unforeseen responsibility to help others seek it within themselves is speaks volumes to your growth and your authenticity and like you said, your vulnerability. So we really appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you have a meet coming up today, right after this.
Yeah, I'll probably leave in like an hour.
Oh my goodness. See, that's incredible to me too, that you're able to come speak to us about this, but then with all your statistics, you're about to go crush your meat. We have no doubt in it. So again, it just speaks volumes to who you are as a person, the growth you've done within yourself, and what you're trying to do here for the mental health community is there really is no words besides thank you. So we appreciate you coming on today, Olivia. We will be following you closely, the Make Mental family, on your final year here at University of Texas. And what do? You do something like this, right?
Yeah, hook 'em.
Is that? All right. Well, I don't know what you just said, but woo. Good luck. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will chat soon.
Yeah, thank you guys for doing this. I really appreciate what you guys are doing for the mental health community and really appreciate you guys reaching out to me and having me on.